Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, it's truly a great pleasure to be here in Banja Luka. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the organizers for the invitation to join you at this important proceeding. In preparing my remarks, I was very much aware that I would be talking to the already converted, those who are already aware of the magnitude of road traffic injury globally, regionally, and to countries. But at the same time, I also wanted to take the opportunity that if even just one person finds something new about the importance, the preventability of road traffic injury, then it is a new person that we have brought into our efforts to save lives and prevent injuries on our roads. I'm going to take the opportunity to essentially set the scene for what, looking at the program, what is going to be a very detailed and in-depth program over the next 2 days. But this is why we are here. This human-made epidemic of road traffic deaths and injuries that, according to WHO's estimates, claims more than 1.35 million people every year. That makes it the leading cause of death for those aged 5 to 29 and is not the equivalent of one plane crash occurring every day, but 7. Or another way to put that is that someone dies on our global roads, someone dies on our roads every 23 seconds. I've been working in road safety for WHO for more than 15 years, and every time I think about that statistic, every time I think about someone dying on our roads every 20 seconds, it is just such a tragic and frightening statistic. But the good news is that road traffic injuries and deaths are not accidents. They can be prevented. For those of you who are not familiar with WHO, we are the United Nations Public Health Agency. We, within the UN system, have a coordination role for road safety that was conferred on us by the United Nations General Assembly. Just a brief overview of our structure. We have our headquarters in Geneva, but we have 6 geopolitical regions. And my program, I am based in Copenhagen, where I manage violence and injury prevention, including road safety, for the European region, which is essentially on that slide all of the blue across the most of the northern hemisphere. So 53 countries of the European region. So for us, Europe is significantly larger than just the countries of the European Union. When we look at progress in road safety across these different geopolitical regions, we see an enormous variation of outcomes. At the very top, we have the Southeast Asian region, which includes countries like India and Thailand, for example, Indonesia, some highly populated countries. But based on that curve, are yet to see any reduction in road traffic mortality. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have the region for Europe, which is the countries that I work in, and very importantly, we've seen between 2000 and 2010 and 2016 a 13% reduction overall of road traffic mortality. Excuse me. I don't want to make it sound like that this is all doom and gloom, and it is important to note that we are making progress. We are slowly but surely reducing the global burden of road traffic deaths and injuries. We need to celebrate those successes when we can, because otherwise the magnitude of that task will I think overwhelm us, and we will lose we will lose our inspiration, we will lose our momentum. And so conferences and opportunities like this are a great opportunity to talk about what we've done, to talk about what we've achieved, and reinvigorate our interest and our efforts towards our overarching goal. Just for time purposes, I'm just going to skip forward a few slides, but all of this information will certainly be available for you later. So despite what I've said, I want to, I suppose, add a but. And there's always a but. Despite the progress that we've made, road traffic injuries in WHO's European region is the leading cause of death for those aged 5 to 14 years of age. The second leading cause of death for those aged 15 to 29 years of age. Road traffic injury, both globally, regionally, and in many countries, has its most significant impact in the young and the economically active segments of our population. And this is a pattern that we see in countries throughout the European region. When we look at the 53 countries of the European region, we see an enormous variation. We see we have some countries that are amongst the best performing countries in the world, like Norway and Sweden, Switzerland, for example, United Kingdom, with mortality rates of around 2 or 3 per 100,000. But at the other end of the spectrum, within the same region, we have some countries with amongst some of the highest road traffic mortality rates at around 18, 19, 20 per 100,000. Across the region, we have a 7-fold difference in the number of people who are killed on our roads between the best performing and countries that are still at an earlier stage in their journey of road safety. Being in the same region, the opportunities to share those experiences, to learn from this best practice is something that we, certainly in WHO and the United Nations, hope to facilitate for countries that can most benefit from that collaboration. Excuse me. Importantly, everything that I've mentioned so far is just deaths. And in English, we have a saying. We say that deaths are just the tip of the iceberg. It's the most visible bit that you can see, but it's only a very small fraction of the total. WHO estimates that between 20 and 50 million people suffer non-fatal road traffic injuries every year. And those injuries can result in hospitalization, can require ambulance treatment, can result in permanent disability, can require lifelong rehabilitation, for example. And it's often those non-fatal injuries, which is why road traffic injury and lack of road safety has such an enormous economic impact on countries and on governments. We estimate that between 3 and 5% of GDP is lost due to road traffic deaths and injuries each year. For those of you who are not familiar, and I hope with this audience that you all are, WHO compiles comparable and standardized information on the progress that the world is making on road safety through this global status report on road safety, and it is available in a printed version. But now also it's available as a mobile phone app where information can be readily available. If people are not familiar with how to download this, I will certainly show you later, so you can have it very readily and easily available at your fingertips for all different countries. We also have a dashboard that presents this information in a very visual way. The magnitude of road traffic injury, the situation of national responses across countries. And my director in Geneva sent out messages on social media not very long ago that we unfortunately, as a global community, ticked over 1 million deaths this year, not too long ago, which is a tragedy in so many ways. Again, this dashboard is available on WHO's website. I can certainly direct you to where you can find this information further. Reflective of the magnitude and also the preventability of road traffic injuries, we're very fortunate as part of the global community to have the Sustainable Development Goals, which include road safety, with two very specific but important targets for road safety. So we have the objective by 2020 to reduce by 50% road traffic deaths and injuries, and the importance of sustainable transport, where public transport cannot be sustainable if it is not safe. Just going back to that first objective of 3.6, and I notice on the introductory slides about how this conference is seen as an important contributor. These proceedings is part of that SDG attainment objective. We are certainly making progress, but the pace of that progress and the pace of that change is certainly not fast enough and not sufficient to achieve this objective. 2020 is next year. We've been working on this objective now since it was published, since it was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly back in 2015, and we unfortunately still have a long way to go. There are very few countries, unfortunately, that will achieve this global reduction. And when we talk about 50%, we're aiming for no more than about 600,000 deaths per year. And as you recall from my earlier, I mentioned we're still at around 1.35 million. WHO's work on road safety really commenced back in 2004 when we had our World Health Day devoted to road safety. And we started our work under this banner of road safety is no accident. It highlights, it's essentially a play on words that has two meanings. It highlights that road safety is not an accident. Road traffic crashes are not accidents. Deaths and injuries are not accidents. They have determinants, they have risk factors, they are predictable, they are preventable. But the other part of that message is that road safety doesn't just happen. It takes the dedicated action of professionals like you to achieve road safety. It will not just occur in the absence of that dedication and devoted commitment. WHO, and I've included the link at the bottom of this slide, has a very large catalogue of publications, of normative guidance, technical guidance on various aspects of road safety, whether it relates to legislation, to social marketing, to mass media campaigns, to trauma care, to risk factors, to engaging with journalists, to data systems, an enormous range of materials. But one in particular that I wanted to highlight was WHO's latest offering, which is the technical package called Save Lives. And I'm sure that many of you are aware of this publication already, being part of the international community of road safety practitioners. This certainly has our logo on the front, but is very much reflective of a collaborative development that factored in experience from 50 years or more of experience from organisations and national jurisdictions that have been working on road safety very successfully for a very long time. It is based on the Safe Systems approach, and the Safe Systems approach is often something that I think is difficult to be explained and difficult to be grasped. But one way to look at it is as a series of principles. And I wanted to take the opportunity of this meeting to go back to those first principles, because I think I'm seeing a lot of references to safe systems and Vision Zero in a lot of different countries. But I think the underlying principles behind what this is perhaps not fully realized. Particularly that this is just as much a political commitment as it is a technical approach. So the first principle of safe systems is that human life is the first priority. When we're talking about transport, when we're talking about the needs of road transport, of efficient mobility from A to B, that is always secondary to human life. If a road project is beneficial for transport, but imposes a danger imposes a danger to the road users, then that is not an acceptable exchange under safe systems. Excuse me. The second key principle is that humans are fallible. We make mistakes. We will always make mistakes. You cannot educate away or educate out mistakes. But what you can do is you can create a system that accommodates those mistakes. Those mistakes may and will always result in a crash, but they should never ever result in a death or an injury. And also the next key principle is that we as humans, we have a very finite tolerance to energy. There's only so much force that our bodies can take before we suffer severe or even fatal injuries. And so under a safe systems, our objective is to keep that energy at levels below that tolerance. And so often that comes down to speed. And the next principle is that road safety is a shared responsibility. I heard it in the introductory messages from many different colleagues about how everyone has a role to play in road safety, whether it be governments, whether it be different agencies working on it, whether it be parliaments, whether it be journalists, whether it be private sector, or even individual road users. Everyone has a role to play in road safety. So the safe systems in many circles is really described as a paradigm shift when it comes to comparing it to traditional road safety. We're not trying to prevent all crashes, which is often what the historical objectives of road safety were. We're trying to prevent those. Our sole and exclusive objective is to prevent deaths and injuries on our roads. The Save Lives technical package is divided into 6 components, focusing on speed management, on leadership for road safety, infrastructure design, vehicle safety, the development of legislation and enforcement of that legislation, as well as post-crash care and survival after the crashes. It then goes further into a set of 22 different evidence-based strategies that, when fully implemented, will save lives. WHO, this is our website. All of the information, all of the material that I've shared with you this morning is available for download. But before I close, I want to, I suppose, issue a challenge to colleagues in the audience to think about what it would take in your jurisdiction to adopt a safe systems approach to road safety, to have the sufficient, to mobilize the sufficient political will, the sufficient technical expertise, the financial resources to implement a safe systems approach in your jurisdiction. What would it take? And please find me during the course of the day, and I would be very interested to hear about your thoughts and perspectives on this point. And also what support and what needs countries have from organisations like mine within the UN system, and how we can support you in the task that you have ahead. Just to finalise, I wanted to have one final message. In February next year, on the 19th and the 20th of February, the government of Sweden will be hosting the next ministerial conference on road safety. We've had, this is the 3rd conference that we've had in this series. The first was in Moscow in 2009, the second in Brazil in 2013. And this one will be in February in Sweden. I apologize. Too many people want to go to Northern Europe in February, but we didn't set the date. But this is an important proceeding, and we very much hope that we can have very strong participation from intersectoral delegations from all over the world. There are some important decisions that need to be made moving forward in global road safety. The Decade of Action for road safety is coming to a close. The Sustainable Development Goal 3.6 is due for achievement next year. What's next for the global road safety agenda? These are important questions that will be discussed and hopefully agreed upon moving forward through this ministerial conference. And also part of these proceedings, reflective of the high burden of road traffic death and injury on our youth, there will be a special youth assembly on road safety as part of this proceeding. And countries and governments are encouraged to include a youth representative, a youth delegate, as part of their delegations to come to this meeting. So I will close there. I'd like to thank the organisers again for the opportunity to be here, and I wish you well in your discussions and deliberations over the course of the next 2 days. Thank you very much.